Okay, so now we're looking at 2.2, which is using the multiplication property. Solving equations using the multiplication property. One thing that I want you to understand is with 2.2, you can either solve by using the multiplication or division. And I strongly encourage you to use the multiplication property when you have fractions, and just divide when you have whole numbers or decimals. Because once again, our goal here is to get the coefficient of our variable to be 1. For example, you know you're done when you have the coefficient to be 1, an equal sign, and some constant on the other side. So the first couple of problems tell you what number, and it tells you to be multiplied in order to get x by itself. And they do not want you to solve the equation. So they just want you to figure out what number you are going to multiply. So one thing that I want you to note here is the coefficient in front of that x is in reality just a 1. So this is just really 1 over 4. X equals 3. Well, here we are dealing with the fraction, so we're going to multiply. And when we multiply, we're going to multiply by its reciprocal. So let's talk a little bit about multiplication. We multiply by what's known as its reciprocal. And a reciprocal, first of all, make sure you understand that it's still the same sign, and it's just really the fraction flipped. Okay, so we want this coefficient of our variable to be 1. So we need to get rid of this 1/4. So it's a fraction. What are we going to do? Multiply by its reciprocal. The reciprocal is the same sign, and it's just that fraction flipped. So we're going to multiply by 4 over 1. Once again, note positive, still positive. All we did was flip it. And what you do to one side, you do to the other side. We're just not going to show the over 1 because 4 over 1 really means 4. Here, look what happens. 4's cancel out. We're just left with x have a coefficient of 1, and we get a solution of 12. But the question is, what are we multiplying by? So we're just multiplying by 4. Because 4 over 1 is just really 4. Next question here, once again, by what number is it necessary to divide each side to obtain just x on the left-hand side? So we have negative 7x equals 2. Well, the coefficient of our variable, is a whole number. It's a negative whole number. So let's go back. What do we do when it's a whole number? We just divide. And your clue here should tell you here that what number are we just dividing by. Right, it tells us what number are we just dividing by. So what we'll do here is just divide both of these sides by negative 7. Divide this by negative 7. So the answer here would just be negative 7. Because dividing both sides by negative 7 will cancel those out and leave x to be by itself. Alright, let's look at our next problem. Now they want us to actually solve the equation. Okay, we have 3y equals negative 15. Well, how do we get y by itself? Let's get rid of this whole number here. So we just divide by that whole number. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. We get y to equal, after dividing there, negative 5. And make sure you check your work there. the next problem here. We have x over 17 to equal negative 26. Once again, keep in mind that the coefficient of that x is really just 1. Well, how do we get x by itself? We just multiply by the reciprocal of the fraction, 17 over 1, because that will cancel. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. We really don't even have to show that 17 there. And after multiplying those two numbers, we get it to be a negative 442. So again, make sure you check your work. And the last problem we'll be looking at is this one here. We have 4x plus x minus 6x equals 5. We're just combining all these like terms. Keep in mind there's really just a 1 in front of there. So 4 plus 1 is 5x. 5x minus 6x. After combining all three of these, we get just negative 1x equals 5. But we want the variable of we want the coefficient of our variable to be a positive 1. So in order to get rid of this negative 1, we just divide by negative 1. Those negatives will cancel. Will give us x to be a negative 5 as our solution. Once again, make sure you check your work. So 2.2 is very nice. The most important thing to really understand is what we started talking about in the beginning. In order to solve using this property, if you see a fraction, multiply it by its reciprocal, or if the coefficient, let's put that on the top here, the coefficient right, if the coefficient is a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. If the coefficient is a whole number, decimal, you just divide.